We pull data from PYOR, of course, DeFi Llama, as well as Token Terminal. And you can just pick a protocol, pick a metric, pick a duration, and pick a granularity. For example, if someone were to measure layer 2 protocols on a transaction count, you can pick Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, etc., etc. You can pick transaction count, you can pick 1 year, you can pick daily. And once you hit go, boom, it just pops up in a simple columns on Google Sheets. You don't even have to go to Pure, the app, to do that.
Hey everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful week so far. We have the latest episode of the Inside Crypto Show, interviews and discussions with regular people just like yourselves. Today we're joined by Akash Athawasya. I should have double checked his name before we started recording. A research lead at PYOR. PYOR is a crypto data analytics company for institutional investors analyzing protocols using fundamental metrics, for instance, relative valuation, industry benchmarking, customer retention, etc. All you guys on the podcast know what that is. We'll talk about those in more detail a bit later. Before we dive into the crux of today's show, we have to ask Akash to tell us about himself, tell us about the company, tell us what's it like being a research lead. Akash, thank you so much for making time. Tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Green. Thanks, the Inside Crypto Show, for having me. As you very rightly pointed out, I head research at PYOR. It's pronounced as PYOR. The abbreviation is Power Your Own Research. We're a crypto data analytics company for two sets of people: institutional investors, anyone who's like crypto VC, investing in various kinds of rounds within crypto projects, as well as protocols. Right, the protocols is probably a second addition to our customer suite, and the reason we added crypto protocols is they also want a lot of internal data metrics for their stakeholders. Now, these stakeholders can be token holders, they can be community members, they can be their own VCs, they can be the team members, etc. And we provide all of these metrics. And again, as you rightly mentioned, we provide fundamental metrics, right? So, from a very top-down perspective, a good way to differentiate crypto data is looking at the technical side and the fundamental side. And this is the same with the traditional equity Web2 world. On the technical side, you start off with price and volume. And of course, crypto has that because most crypto protocols have a token that is traded with a price and on an exchange that has a certain amount of volume. Fundamental metrics are more your traditional balance sheet metrics like a Web2 company would see, right? So you would have what your revenue is, what is the expenses, and what is the underlying profit. And with crypto protocols, you can look at other operational metrics like what are the number of people that are using the protocol? How often do they use it? When they use it, what are they doing? Are they a small scale user? Are they a large scale user? Do they keep coming back? What is the user stickiness? What is the user retention? We can do that typically with an app, right? An app like an Uber. We can see how often people come back. The protocol, you can do that as well. The publicly listed company, of course, you can do that, but the disclosures are usually on a quarterly basis, and we provide that for protocols as well. Now, about a little bit of background, I previously worked in a crypto lending company, which unfortunately went bust with the whole FTX saga. So there, I understood sort of the lending landscape and how lending companies work, as at least on the CFI space. Now, DeFi is of course a different beast altogether. Post that, that was way back in 2022. After that, I started my own crypto media company. We had a newsletter similar to a Bankless or a Milk Road. I'm sure your readers are familiar, sorry, your listeners are familiar with that. And since then, I've come into PYOR to work on the research side of things. So my transition has mainly been from a writing simple reportage, similar to any journalistic outfit, to focus more on the data. And the reason, and then I think that's the case for a lot of people getting into crypto from the Web2 world, because the data is abundant and the data is open and it's permissionless. We as a company and several other companies take this data and make it more understandable. I think the industry term is they interpret that data, right? They interpret that data into charts, tables, into simple, easy to understand reports that are written in English and not have that many numbers or acronyms and jargon. And we help do that. Again, we help do that for VCs and protocols, and we help do that at a fundamental level.
Fantastic. And what made you go from like a media focused role into this data driven role?
I think with media, when people are starting off in a journalistic outfit, right, they generally write a lot of articles to understand the protocols. And once they do, or at least once I did, I started looking in between the protocols or into the protocols to see how exactly does it function. A, from a user point of view, actually using them, putting my own money, and B, from a understanding point of view to see how big is this industry. And when I did that, there's plethora of data fields that opened up, and most of them were open and free to use, right? And that gives you a lot of perspective. And since I come from the finance background, where a lot of things were either gated or time duration gated, where you can only get the information on a quarterly basis, or you can only get the information on an annual statement. Crypto doesn't have that problem, where everything is just pushed out into the open, which is very useful for someone who wants to get into the data side of things, right? And that made me a little bit more curious. I looked through the data, found a lot of good answers, found out why a protocol is different, not better than another protocol, or how it caters to different kinds of users, and how it's different on a chain level as well. That got me a lot interested in the data side of things. And PYOR, I think, was an easier bet. And PYOR is also an Indian company. I'm again based out of India, and the people who started PYOR, the founders, ran India's largest crypto exchange called CoinSwitch. So they have a very clear understanding of the retail focus and how it's different from the institutional focus. And most data companies, I'm sure, are very geared towards the B2B or the institutional side of things. Not just because that's where the money is, but that's where the real data need is. Retail users like you and I, or at least probably not you and I, but the average newbie who's getting into crypto, they generally look at technical indicators because they value it similar to a stock. But people like you and I, who have spent a little time in the crypto industry, look at it on a more fundamental level. And that's why I think we appreciate these data companies a lot more.
Definitely, and I agree with you. And we spoke to one of the founders of Flipside, 21 Code, 21 Shares. We have a Dune Analytics Wizard who works for us as well, and he's a big fan of Dune, and we always post the Dune stuff on Twitter. And I'm a big fan of Token Terminal personally. I like them in this space, and a lot of people in crypto, even maybe a few newer people, are aware of these data analytics companies. And where are you positioning yourselves? Like, where is PYOR fit in the Dunes and the Flipsides and the Token Terminals, and where do you want to be, and how are you going after this institutional space?
Got it. I think that's a very useful question, and that's a question we get often, right? Because there's a bunch of data companies that are coming out rightfully. And I really like going back to the thing that Mark Andreessen said, which is bundling and unbundling of software products, right? I think crypto is coming to a point where everything is getting unbundled. Again, rightfully so. Now, I'm again not talking about the Dunes and the Flipsides, because I think those are more application layers where people can go and build their own dashboards for various protocols and query any basic databases they want. They're more expansive. But the other companies that you mentioned, something like a Token Terminal and Nansen, etc., those are unbundling of the larger data behemoth. Now, let's look at it one by one, right? If data has reportage or the research aspect of this, and I think Misari does a fantastic job with that. They're the industry leaders, and their research reports are really well done. And at a data level, if we break it down from the wallets that are actually interacting with the protocols, what are these wallets doing? Are they a DEX wallet? Are they an NFT wallet? Are they a liquidity pool wallet? Are they an airdrop farmer? Right? That data is really well done by Nansen, and I think they're the best at it. Now, at an entity level, for example, if a one confirmation or a Dragonfly Capital, their collation of wallets are acting at a particular level, right? I think Arkham does a good job at the entity level. Now, at a fundamental level, there are several examples of this. Token Terminal, again, does a fantastic job by actually looking at the price to fees ratio, breaking down everything through a financial statement. And then there's the large swath of, and these are your premium institutional data products. And there are a lot of meme coin related data companies as well that's coming out. Maybe not meme coin is probably a bad word to use there, or an insufficient word to use there. A lot of small cap coins that if people want to analyze these small cap coins, Alphanomics does a good job there. Bird Eye does a good job there. They're also an aggregator with Jupiter. X Screener does a really good job there, and a bunch of others. And of course, there are stuff at the NFT level, etc. Now, what PYOR does is we do two things, right? We have a B2C product where people can look at our own fundamental metrics, but we also provide a benchmark to benchmark a protocol with the rest of the protocols. We also provide relative valuation with Web2 financial metrics that you can evaluate a protocol to other protocols. For example, we have working capital turnover ratio for a DEX. We have a price to fees ratio for a DEX as well. For a layer one protocol, we can see the number of people that are coming in versus the total value that is locked within the chain itself. Now, these are just at a one level valuation metric that is built in, that is used to measure one protocol or chain versus others. And this is again coming back to our fundamental roots, because I think most people want to, at least most institutions want to understand crypto at a fundamental level, because they are moving from Web 2 to Web 3. At least most VCs are, most institutional investors are. That's one thing that we provide at a B2C level. At a B2B level, we work with a lot of VCs who make their own interpretation layers on top of data. They get a data dump, but they don't want to interpret that on their own, and they want to use custom metrics to interpret that, right? If they're only focusing on L1s, or they're only focusing on perp DEXs, or they're only focusing on DEXs in general, or NFT marketplaces, we build a dashboard that exactly creates custom formulas exactly for them, so that they can create or they can interpret the data in any way they want, right? But they have a basis for doing that. So I think that's how we differentiate. Again, we are an unbundling of that same phenomenon that Nance and Token Terminal Arkham is as well, but we want to do it at a slightly more interpretation level. And that's why on our website, we put the data interpretation layer. We want to be an interpretation layer as opposed to a analysis layer or a research layer. Those are part and parcel of what we want to do, but we want to focus on being an interpretation layer at this moment.
I mean, that's a great focus. I've got to ask as well, in crypto, and especially now, despite the negativity maybe the last week or 2 weeks or so with outflows from the spot ETFs and Bitcoin's dampening the market, things are still generally positive, right? And I find like smaller data analytics projects like what PYOR is doing, you need to grow, right? You need to have some sort of public component in order to be like, oh my God, this is fantastic, this is exciting, and this person is telling that person, this person is telling this person, right? If you are this big B2B focus, right? Like, how do you gather a community? How do you grow? You know, we're on this podcast, of course, right? And that's, of course, going to help you to talk to other projects, talk to other people, be on TikTok, be on Reels, that sort of stuff. But what's your plan for growth to maintain this media momentum going forward into 2024?
I think the growth plan for any data company would start with analysts, and we want to focus on analysts. That's our number one target group. And the way we want to get into them, we've realized that analysts just want good analysis. They don't want anything more than that. Protocols just want good analysis. VCs just want good analysis. So our goal is very simple. If we focus on the analysis as the bedrock of our growth, then we will grow. And then, of course, you need to add distribution on top of that. You need to add influence on top of that. You need to add a lot of other things on top of that as well, right? But we want to focus very clearly on doing the right analysis of various projects that we come up with, and to focus on stuff that people really want, right? We worked on reports for, say, Hive Mapper, and there's a new blockchain, not a new blockchain, but slightly up and coming blockchain called Sui, and the staking protocol are doing really well. So we've analyzed Kryptonite as well as Silo Stake. We want to focus on Linea because that's a new ZK EVM chain that's coming up on Ethereum. We want to focus on core analysis at a fundamental level so that we actually get the word out there. And after that, we can just see where it goes. Distribution is, of course, our key focus. We're focusing on distribution within the protocol's governance forums, because I think that's where the real alpha is with respect to a protocol. At a macro level, you can see that on a Discord or a Twitter or a LinkedIn or a Reddit, right? But on a micro level, if we really want to know, we spend most of our time on governance forums to see what people are actually talking about. And people there have a lot to say. And they think that very few people actually hear them out, right? Especially from a service provider point of view, whether it's a data company like us or a backend engineering company like someone else, right? What we want to do is go into those communities, figure out what they want from an end user point of view or an end data point of view, build that analysis about that data dashboard or that Google Sheet or whatever they need, and send that to them, because that is something that they actually want. So that's what we're doing right now. We're focusing on our analysis, and we're sourcing that analysis from governance forums to give them exactly what they want. And then I think a layer of distribution we have to add on top of that, which is just like a formulaic thing that we can put, but that starts with the analysis and the governance forums for us.
Nice. Looking at your website, right, and looking at people might be mistaken, PYOR is the product, but your product is X-Ray. And that is one of the coolest names ever. You tell us about X-Ray, and could you say, all right, lots of people listen to this on a variety of levels, founders, devs, that sort of stuff. If somebody had to say, somebody's going to pause this video right now and they're like, okay, I've got to go check out PYOR. What is the best thing available on your site for them to check out? in your mind?
We have the only benchmark index for DEXs, and we cover the top 10 DEXs on Ethereum. And Ethereum has about 55 to 60% of DeFi TBL. So if someone right now were to pause this and go to our website, you can go to pure.xyz, check out our app, which is X-Ray, and go to any DEX that you want specifically. And on the left panel, you see this thing called the DEX Benchmark Index, Pure DEX Benchmark Index. And on that, you can benchmark all DEXs against one benchmark index. And that is something that we've tested out with Ethereum. We want to do this with Solana specifically because a lot of DEX volume has moved there. And we're going to do this chain by chain as well. That's one thing. If I were to add another one at a bonus level, we have a pretty neat retention heat map that is for DEXs, it's at a chain level. For chains, it's of course at a macro level. And for perps, it's at a chain level as well, where you can see on a monthly basis how many new addresses interacted with a protocol or a chain. And on a monthly basis thereafter, how many of those protocols came back, right? So this is an example that I'm just pulling off as we're doing this. I'm looking at Solana because everybody wants to know about Solana. Yeah, let's look at the retention numbers there. Under Solana, there's a tab called retention cohort, and under the detailed cohort, that's where the heat map opens up. In April 24, which is the just past month, there've been 5.2 million new addresses that interacted with the Solana blockchain, any Solana protocol on that chain. And in the previous month, there were 6.6 million new addresses, and that's almost triple the previous month and an all-time high on a monthly basis. Now, one interesting thing that we track is monthly retention, right? So from March to April, 22% or just over 1/5 of those 6.6 million addresses retained and used the protocol in April, despite the relative decrease in prices, despite the relative decrease in hype in the meme coin mania, etc. So this is something that you can track right now for free on the website itself at a protocol level. Those two, I think, are the key things that we look at. But of course, if someone wants to look at relative valuation at a Web2 metric level, like a working capital turnover ratio or return on capital employed, etc., that is also something that we track. So that's something you guys can check out as well on here.
Thank you as well for explaining, because you literally read my mind. I was going to ask you, like, oh, please, can you give us some numbers? And you gave us some numbers, which is fantastic. Akash, let's zoom out a bit, because we have had a few Indian founders. I work with our head of one side of the company at 21 Co 21 Shares is Indian as well. The Indian crypto landscape has changed a lot in the last 2 to 3 years. And we're in 2024. There's still, I believe, that sort of big crypto tax, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is India still a place for people to be excited about crypto, to work on crypto projects, despite the sort of like tax that exists on crypto assets in India?
That's a long answer there. It's a good thing we're doing this on podcast. The crypto tax exists. I think it's been existing since July 2022. And the tax you're referring to is mainly as crypto as an asset, not as a use case, because that's how the Indian government defines it. And the tax is, again, on an investment basis, it's 1% tax deducted at source whenever someone sells crypto or converts crypto to crypto. I think it's a 30% tax regardless of long term or short term. They don't differentiate. And the losses cannot be carried forward from one year to the other as you can with stocks. And that is really bad in of course, the bear market, and because you can't offset your losses in the bear to the bull market, which right now is happening. Again, that is just at an investment level. But more than that, there have been a few issues with banks working with crypto exchanges. I think most of that has been solved. So a few crypto exchanges are resilient in India. I think Coin Switch, Coin DCX being two of them. Both of these, I think, are Coinbase funded through Coinbase Ventures. So at an exchange level, that is still there. At a retail level, the hype has died down, and a lot of people are focusing on use cases. And this focus comes mainly from the dev community. Now, India has a huge dev community. I think we produce one of the largest number of engineering CS graduates in the world. And crypto protocols all across the world have tapped into this. Now, it started with Polygon. Polygon, of course, is an Indian-born company founded by Indian founders specifically. And they recognize this. And I think in 2022 itself, they did a lot of roadshows all across the country to gather this momentum and push a lot of developers. I think Solana has really taken this on with Super Team, their community program. And they launched a lot of these hacker houses all across the country on a periodic basis. And those two blockchains have really set the wheels going, and a lot more blockchains are coming to the country to get this dev community up and running. Now a lot of these devs are transitioning from web 2 to web 3 at a fresher level itself, which is really good to see, right? They go through SQL and go on Dune or Flipside if they wanted to pursue the analysis part of it, which is really good for us because we find a lot of great Indian crypto analysts through Dune and Flipside. Or they go on the route of the software hardcore engineering space where they build applications on various blockchains. And it's again not limited to, initially we thought that this would be limited to Ethereum or Ethereum L2s, right? But it's not that. A lot of people are building on Aptos, Sui, Say, they're building on Solana as well, a lot of Ethereum L2s, and again, now a lot of Bitcoin L2s as well, right? Which is very interesting to see. And I think that momentum will keep going. And given that the retail sort of focus on crypto has died down for two reasons. One is the tax, the other is the market itself. A lot of dev interest is coming back up, and that dev interest, they've realized that they can't realize that at an exchange level if they get paid in crypto. They're using DeFi platforms, and when they use DeFi platforms, regardless of chain, they start understanding these DeFi platforms as figuring out that, hey, I can probably make this on my own or make this better. Maybe I should apply to these companies. So that has allowed the move from retail crypto as an investment to crypto as a use case has really shifted in India. And I think is going to grow significantly over the next few years. A lot of people are putting a lot of interest, and a lot of young Indian founders are coming up, and it shows with the Indian community. And a good way to metric test this is December every year. In the first week of December, there's the ETH India, which is organized in Bangalore in India. And a lot of crypto companies have side events around this, similar to how they would in Token 2049, etc. And there it usually was like a lot of these trading focused companies. Now it's a lot of chain companies that do this. And it's not just Ethereum or Ethereum L2s, right? Solana, Cosmos, Avalanche, etc. have a lot of events around these. And if anyone who's listening to this wants to come and see the fever of Indian crypto, I really suggest to come to Bangalore in November, December of any year, this year as well, and just see what people are actually building and interact with a few Indian developers. And then you'll see what's exactly happening on ground.
I've got to do that. I went to India for the first time last year in forever. And my ancestors came from India, left India to move to South Africa, however, a long time ago. So I went last year. It was amazing, and I was invited last year as well. It was like, oh, you should come check out the ETH conference last year. And I never had the time. Especially, I'm so close. I'm in Taiwan, so it's only, I think, like a 6-hour flight from Taiwan to India,
very
which
close.
is pretty close. Yes, yeah. So I should definitely come check that out. Okay, let's swing this back around back to X-Ray. So I'm a VC, or I'm an institution, or I'm an organizer, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm listening to Akash right now on the Inside Crypto podcast. This is really interesting. What would this step be for them to say, okay, I need to contact you and I need to get access to this data? And how does the onboarding process work? Is there an onboarding process? What happens if someone says, I need this data at an institutional level because I'm making decisions or I'm investing in crypto projects or something like that?
But we don't have that typical sort of setup, sign up a form, tell us what your interests are, tell us what your assets are, etc. We don't have that. We just simply talk to you. We set up a call ASAP with you to understand what your data needs are, understand which exact sector you're looking at, right? Whether it's the DEX, the DeepIn, the Perp DEX, the NFT side of things, and what exact metrics you're looking for. Now, of course, we have a certain list of metrics that are more, again, macro for these products, these protocols, but that might not suffice any particular person's appetite. So we see what exact end case you're looking at. Maybe you want to value a DEX based on its token price, which is more or less its competitor or its benchmark. Maybe you want to take a North Star metric of a niche like an NFT marketplace and compare that to some other sort of a CeFi marketplace. We can pull that data out as well. Once we understand that, we see how much of that data is open source. If it's Ethereum, we run Ethereum nodes, so we can pull that data on hand. If it's gated in any way, for example, it's CeFi data, we'll see if there's an API endpoint for that. If not, if we have contacts within the particular protocol or chain, we can build out an API endpoint for that so that we can pull out that data. And then we figure out what is the best way to give that out to you, whether you want it on a recurring dashboard, whether you want it on a simple Google Sheet. Most people prefer that because it's easy and you can do your own analysis to that. If you want it on a front end for your own product or a common front end that we build out, we figure out the endpoint for that. But once that's done, we also engage in a lot of community activities because not a lot of people view data until you tell them that it's relevant to them, right? And the way we do that is we build research reports for them to figure out what is the insights that we have gleaned from the data itself. These are not your typical quarterly reports. These are more comparing a DEX or a DEXs version 1, version 2, version 3 to something new that's coming out by another deck. DEX is just an example. We can do it with multiple other protocols as well. We also compare it to the CFI landscape because we've seen a lot of volume or value rather move from the CFI landscape to the DeFi landscape. So we compare that as well. We did that for DYDX, comparing that with Coinbase because Coinbase results came out, I think, recently. So we do a lot of these comparisons across peers as well as CFI DeFi peers, and we build that out for a VC, for a protocol, and we give them an output depending on where they want. I think the real value comes in the fact that we can build in custom formulas for them, right? So usually it's one size fits all that most B2B platforms do. And of course, it's a product that you access via subscription, then of course it's one size fits all. But at a VC level, when you're making multi-million-dollar decisions, you can't take a generalized approach, right? You need a very specific approach to analyze your own investable asset versus another investable asset based on a formula that you want. And we can do that. We can pull out that data. We can put in that custom formula. We can build it out into your dashboard that you want. And we can relatively measure that against any benchmark or asset that you'd like.
What you just said was just really exciting, that in this era of 2024, how accessible data has become. And that's the advantage of crypto as well, right? In previous podcasts, I know when we spoke to one of the founders of Flipside, when we talk about June on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, right? A lot of the people like, how do we know that your data is accurate? I guess that's the sort of typical average newbie question that we always get. So how do we know the data on X-Ray is accurate?
So for the Ethereum data, we run our own nodes. So we pull out data from the blockchain itself. So that is like the most accurate data that you can get, at least from an Ethereum level. From a third party that we don't have access to, or for data that we don't have access to, that we use a third party for, we make sure that their data is accurate and pull out their API endpoint for that, right? But the way we can figure out their data is accurate, so we generally take it from 2-3 data sources and see what the slippage is or what the difference is, right? If it's marginal, then we can pick either. We benchmark it with, say, industry leaders. DeFi Llama is pretty much the best metric for this because it's free, open source, and it's community oriented, and there's no sort of subscription access to this, and they have pretty much every single data that you need. So the breadth of data is really high. The depth of data is a little lacking. And that's, again, something that we solve for. But if we use DeFi Llama for a lot of these data points, if we want CFI data, it depends on what. So for example, if we look at derivatives data, CoinGlass, CryptoQuant are good use cases for that. At a wallet level, Nansen has really good data. But again, wallets are not something that we look at specifically. So to answer your question, for Ethereum, we run our own nodes. Data is pretty much accurate, as accurate can be there. For third-party data sources, we use multiple sources, or we figure out the best possible source, figure out if they have an API endpoint. If it's a protocol and they have very specific metrics that are on-chain but not easily viewable, like maybe on-chain voting or something like that, that is something that we ask the protocol for. And if they release that API endpoint, maybe we can pull in that data anywhere else.
Nice. So someone using X-Ray today, right? And I had a chance to play around with it, and I was like, okay, this is pretty interesting. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, cool. I understand this because I've looked at a few different platforms, right? In the future, I would imagine we're going to have new people, new users, institutional or just regular crypto people. How are you going to convey what this data means to somebody who's might be brand new or might be working for Apple's VC and his boss was like, hey, go check out this DEX on Ethereum and explain to me what this is doing. And this guy doesn't know anything about crypto. Do you have documentation on your website? Are there YouTube videos on PYOR at youtube.com at PYOR? Like, how does someone learn all this stuff?
That is a hard convincing point for someone who is coming in new and fresh. But most of our metrics, again, are very web to inspired is probably the best words, right? we try not to overly cryptotize things, right? Because that's really hard for a new person to understand. Because everyone's coming in, at least the VC side of things, they're coming in from an investment perspective. So their goal is to get $1 into $2, right? That's the goal of every VC, long term, short term.
Right.
So what we do is we have the metrics itself that are very easy to understand. Price to fees, right? So a price to fee would probably be very similar to a PE ratio at a Web2 company when someone is analyzing a stock, right? So here, a price is very obvious with a crypto protocol. It has a trading price, it has a market cap. Fees, it can depend. So it can be transaction fees for a layer one or a layer two protocol, a layer one or layer two chain. For a DEX or for a perp DEX, it can be trading fees, etc. And then you just have to sort of divide that to get an output. So conceptually, it's very easy to understand. We don't play around with the nomenclature to make it overly complex. And I think that is what a lot of crypto protocols do, right? In a good way. So for example, if you go to probably the OG DeFi Llama, they have a very simple metric called market cap by TVL. Like they don't frame it in a very overly complex valuation metric or use case metric or some jargon thing like that, right? They just say market cap by TVL, which is the market cap of the coin divided by the total value locked of coins on the protocol or the chain, and give you a multiple. So it's fairly easy to understand. So from a nomenclature point of view, most of crypto does a good job. So if someone new comes in, they don't really need to break their head and Google a bunch of things. Beyond that, what we can do as an added step is we explain each metric as people go through them so that people understand exactly what it is that they're actually using, right? And the second is we're soon going to build out a lot of these office hour videos. And Nancy does a good job with their office hour videos as well. We are going to do that as well. And second to that, we've built out a Google Sheet plugin, which is something that anybody right now can download if they go to their open Google Sheet, go to the extensions tab, and just search for PYOR Sheets, PYOR space Sheets. What that basically does is, if you can log into it or not, we pull data from three sources, not just our source. We pull data from PYOR, of course, DeFi Llama, as well as Token Terminal. And you can just pick a protocol, pick a metric, pick a duration, and pick a granularity. For example, if someone were to measure layer two protocols on a transaction count, you can pick Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, etc., etc. You can pick transaction count, you can pick 1 year, you can pick daily. And once you hit go, boom, it just pops up in a simple columns on Google Sheets. You don't even have to go to PYOR, the app, to do that. And from there, you can do anything you want, right? That's up to you. After that, anything is up to you. You can build a chart, run your own analysis, export it to your front end, send it to your internal team to do more analysis, anything you want, right? And like I mentioned, we have this for DeFi Llama and Token Terminal. Token Terminal requires a login, and the login on Token Terminal is free. So it's pretty much without any cost to you. And you don't need to use DeFi Llama directly. You don't need to use Token Terminal directly. You don't even need to use PYOR directly. You can just go to your Google Sheets and use it. This is something that we have seen. The reason we've built something like that is because, like you said, people don't want a fancy new interface. They don't want a separate new UI. They like Google Sheets. They like Microsoft Excel. They just want everything there. We're like, okay, cool. Why to create an unnecessary product, right? Let's just give it to them on that Google Sheet, source the data, and they just don't want our data. They might want Token Terminal for whatever reason. They might want DeFi Llama for whatever reason. We'll give it to them. So take everything, put it on your Google Sheet, run your own analysis, and yeah, you're good.
That's amazing. Akash, you have been a wonderful guest, exciting and positive and energetic, and I really appreciate your time. We've touched on everything despite not even like asking the questions verbatim. That's awesome. Before we end up today's show, I'd like to just give you a chance if there's anything else you want to mention. Make sure to include PYOR's links, especially that Google Sheet extension link as well. That thing is awesome. I want to test that out maybe a little bit later. I'm going to do some work after this podcast. But yeah, floor is yours. Anything else you want to add today? Anything else you want to mention about PYOR or X-Ray or some upcoming events? Take as much time as you want.
Oh, thanks. First of all, thank you so much to you and the Inside Crypto team for having me on. I think crypto data is just a behemoth, but you need to find the right platform to use. Can be both from a data and from a user use case point of view. Our goal is to just give you the best analysis. We aren't really that focused on packaging it to you in the right way. Our website is very bare bones, but we're improving on that. Our research is not. Our research is going to come in thick and fast, especially in this year. And that's our goal too. We have the data, we have the sources. We just want to pump out as much useful, simple research to you as a reader to understand from a very simplistic point of view. We don't want to put unnecessary jargons or formulas and nothing like that. We just tell you what is and what isn't. That's it. If you want to check out the product, you can go to pure.xyz. If you're a prospective VC or protocol that wants to get some data needs done, please reach out to either me or Pure itself. Our Twitter handle is PureXYZ, PYOR XYZ. Same on Farcaster, same on any social media platform, crypto or not, LinkedIn, etc. The Google Sheets plugin, which is of course very useful, you can just download that off of Google Sheets. You don't really need to come to our website for that. Under your Google Sheets tab, I think there's add-ons and extensions, or extensions and add-ons. I'm not really sure. You can search under manage extensions. You can add an extension. Our Sheets plugin is simply called Pure Sheets, PYOR space Sheets. Once you download that, a sidebar pops up, and you can either log in or not, choosing if you want to keep data confidential. You can log in or not, put out all the information, and go. You have the data on your Excel sheet. If you want to access the product, app.pure.xyz. You want to talk to us, there's a button on the website, or you can reach out, like I said, on Twitter, LinkedIn, Farcaster, etc. I would be happy to help you with any data needs. But thanks so much. This has been such a fun conversation. I hope I was able to entertain your listeners and hopefully leave them with some value.
You've entertained and definitely inspired. Akash, of course, Pure's socials will be there. Is there any place for people to follow you? I think I'm very impressed with the way you've spoken today. Are you on Farcaster or X or LinkedIn or other places for people to follow what you post?
Oh, thank you for allowing me to push this as well. But yeah, I'm on X as Akash Atha, KASHATHA at Akash Atha. The same is on LinkedIn, same is on Farcaster, etc. If you have any specific data needs and you again want to email me, that's absolutely fine as well. It's akash@pure.xyz. So send across a message and hopefully we can help you in any way possible.
Thank you, and I really appreciate it. I know people new in the space, people old in the space, people who've been in the space. We always love to meet new people, follow new voices. And again, I'm just really impressed by your breadth of knowledge and your passion on the subject, and I think a lot of people are as well. Thank you again for your time, Akash, and hopefully we get to catch up maybe in person in India at some point, or at least to do another show to talk about some new data revelations. Like you mentioned, the L2 stuff. I was working on some data thing with regards to L2. I'm like, oh my God, if I had the pure Google Sheets, that would be much easier. I was using l2beat.com and that took forever to get what I was supposed to do done. Google Sheets would have been much faster, and I wish I'd known about this sooner, but that's just water under the bridge. Akash, thank you again, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you.
Thank you.